Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL's Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman producing behind the scenes. I'm Dave Holcomb. Thank you for joining us on this Easter weekend. Happy Easter to those who are celebrating. And we have some good topics to get into, Tom. This is kind of the dead period, you could say, between the NFL free agency starting and the NFL draft. But there's some draft rumors that are heating up, some pro days that are causing some stirs online. And then we had the owners meeting this past week that led to some rule changes. So we're going to get to all of that in the next hour.
Yeah, for a dead period, it's given us a lot to talk about. So, yeah, we have a lot to cover.
Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. When you download the app, use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So some free money for you when you get started. Major League Baseball started the last couple of days. So that's a great opportunity to download the app and get in on some baseball entries. And hockey playoffs, basketball playoffs are right around the corner. And of course, the NCAA tournament is still going on for the men and the women. So a great time to be in on Prize Picks and not too late to get started. Download the app and use our promo code.
Absolutely. A lot of action going on and a lot of player. Oh, God, I can't talk this morning. A lot of player props are available. So, sign in, take a look, and pick up some free money and see what you can do. See if you're really the expert that you think you are. Okay? Oh, I don't know if that sounded as good coming out as it did in my head.
That's all right. You're challenging our listeners. I like
challenging the listeners, right.
Yeah. Well, last week I was drinking I forget the name of the shake place. Well, but today I'm drinking pure protein, Tom.
Oh, okay.
140 calories.
Actually, those are pretty good.
Yeah. I found out this week that there's 650 milligrams of calcium. So if you need your calcium intake, great thing to drink. And if you're looking for a sponsor for your small business or know someone who is looking for a sponsor for their small business, this could be you. Could be drinking your drink every week.
Right. So, it never hurts to put it out there. So let's see what they say. Let's do this. We got a lot going on.
So
NFL starts today.
What starts today?
The United Football League.
Yes. Yeah. And, that kind of ties in nicely with what we were talking about last week about, developing these quarterbacks that Cam Newton doesn't think there's much of a development. One way that you pointed out to me on social media this week that the NFL could put more of an emphasis on developing quarterbacks and really just players overall,
right,
are these spring leagues.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, I know you got to get these spring leagues established, but I'm a little surprised they don't go to the NFL and try and work out a deal where, maybe the NFL makes practice squad and first-year players available to these new leagues as a development tool. And the new league takes advantage of that, getting higher quality players, getting somebody that people are going to recognize when they watch the football game on Saturday and Sunday. And, it seems to me like it's a win-win for both sides. NFL gets better players. The spring league gets better players. And, it doesn't have to be anything complicated, just a quick. And I know you always have the danger of injury, but, you also have the benefit of getting back a player who may be better for the experience. Because, it's not NFL, but it's a step up from college ball. So you're getting a player that's actually, he's not playing NFL football, but he's playing better competition than what he had seen before. And that's going to help his game. So,
yeah. And I would think it'd be better than the CFL as well. Another league that takes place in the summer. The Lions signed one of the leading edge rushers from the CFL a couple months ago. So I mean, that is a potential development league too. Yeah. But yeah, this I agree with you that the spring league, there's an opportunity here for some development and not just trying to capitalize on making additional money, but also just making your product better.
Yeah.
And developing players. And you would think that there would be more of an emphasis on that with the practice squads growing in recent years. You have it was a product of COVID, so that they had those extra players ready to go in case a lot of players went out with COVID-19, but it's here to stay, and there's giant practice squads now. Right. Some spots filled with veterans, some just development players, and those players could be developing in these spring leagues.
Right, exactly, and that's one of the reasons why the spring leagues don't make it. Is you have so many of these players that normally would have fell to them are now not on NFL rosters, but are playing at an NFL level with NFL teams, practicing, as an NFL player. And it makes a difference in how much competition you can draw into these spring leagues. But one of the problems is the NFL won't do it if it's not profitable. Yeah. The World League of American Football, they closed it down, even though they did get some, good players out of it. They shut it down because it wasn't profitable. So the NFL tends to look at a bottom line a lot more. And my issue is that this can indirectly affect your bottom line. You may not see the money at the bottom of the balance sheet.
Yes.
But it's going to indirectly affect the bottom line because you're getting better product back.
Right. Yeah. But the NFL isn't known for indirect bottom line benefits. They like having the direct impact on their wallet.
Yes, they do.
I guess I can't fault them for that. They are a business, but I do think a really strong business looks at the bigger picture, as you're talking about.
That's the thing. A big business, a successful business in the corporate world or sports world always looks at the bigger picture. You do have to take your eye off the bottom of the balance sheet occasionally. And that's something the NFL has never been good at doing.
Yeah.
But maybe they should look at that a little bit more. And again, it gives your quarterback a chance to play against competition that's a step up from your college days. You get former NFL coaches or high-ranking college coaches in your system that can teach better. And, it as I say, you're giving them a chance to play professional football, NFL-style football. And, you can see who can do it. So, that's the way it is.
I'm assuming Brian's saying hi to my son, not to you, Tom. But yes, yeah. Thomas is with us today. Nanny was not able to work today, so I'm watching him during the show. Okay. Trying to keep him entertained with a solo cup. Which, I've got mixed feelings about him already liking solo cups, but
Oh wow, yeah, I get you.
But there was a pretty big trade in the NFL last night, Tom.
Yep.
Eagles edge rusher Haasan Reddick was sent to the New York Jets. And over the last week or so, I would say he was a target that was heating up as a possibility for the Falcons. I think that was first floated by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler about a week or so ago. He also mentioned the Arizona Cardinals. Turned out that the Jets were the team that landed him for a conditional 2026 third-round pick. The pick will become a second rounder if Reddick plays 2/3 of New York's snaps next season and reaches 10 sacks, which he's been able to accomplish each of the last 4 years. So,
right.
Were you surprised that the Falcons weren't, at least it seemed like the internet followers of Falcons were maybe more interested in Reddick than the Falcons actually were. Did that surprise you? And now knowing the compensation for Reddick, are you disappointed that the Falcons didn't offer a draft pick 2 years down the road for an edge rusher?
Yeah, I am surprised and disappointed both. Because if you get Reddick in, he's still a young guy. All right. He's still on the right side of 30.
Yeah.
And I don't want to start talking about, over 30 years old as old men anymore. Because that seems to be the way things are going in the NFL. But, still effective, very good rusher, gets after the quarterback, even if he doesn't get to him, gets after the quarterback, a lot of quarterback hits. And, guy who's going to be effective. So you're thinking maybe either the Falcons didn't think he fit their system, the new system that's coming in, but the problem is you're sitting at Falcons at number 8, right?
Yes, number 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
You could do a lot more with that number 8 pick if you get Haasan Reddick and maybe trade back, get more depth. Now you still have to use that 8th pick for an edge rusher.
Yeah. I saw a mock draft this week. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on where it was from because I look at a lot of mock drafts, but it had the Falcons trading back from number 8 to 12 and still landing Dallas Turner from Alabama, which would be a huge win if they could get Turner and get more draft capital in the process.
Exactly. That's a huge gap.
But not getting Reddick, are you willing to take that risk of moving back even only 4 spots and hoping that Turner is still there?
I haven't looked at a lot of mock drafts yet. I will get back to that probably in the next couple of weeks and see where everybody's landing on these mock drafts. But, you got to evaluate that. You got to kind of take a look, see what other teams need, see where they might be. And everybody's setting up their draft boards right now, and you've got to take a chance. If you think you can do that, there's a second rusher available in the draft. I forget his name now.
Yeah, I worked on the pronunciation of his name this week. I talked to a UCLA alum that I work with, and I got the pronunciation from him. You're talking about the UCLA guy, right?
Yeah.
I won't be able to pronounce it right now. Alu, something like that.
Well, he's a different one, but he's a quality one too. I'm thinking of
Jason knows who I'm talking about.
Latua.
You're talking about the Florida State guy?
I want Dallas Turner. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Let's just be simple about it. I want Dallas Turner. I think he's the best prospect coming out at the edge. And so it's I wish I could remember the name now because I was just looking at it earlier today. Where
I think you're talking about the Florida State guy. Let me pull up edge rushers here.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Dave, it's coming for you. Things leave your mind without.
Jared Verse. I thought his name
Verse.
began with a J. Actually, I thought it was JV actually too. Yes, Brian says Jared Verse. That's the Verse.
So you do have an alternative out there if you trade back from 8. The problem is 8's a tricky spot. What's another team looking for? Are they looking for a possible quarterback like Nix or Penix, or are they looking for McCarthy? I don't know if he's still going to be there, but maybe JJ McCarthy. Or are they looking for a different position? Are they looking for a tackle? Because there's a lot of tackles coming out this year. It's a heavy year. It's a good year to be a tackle.
There's a lot of tackles. You're right. Yeah.
And there's still some high-ranking wide receivers that are going to be there. So you got to look at what another team's looking for. Can I make that trade back from 8 and still get my guy? Or are the teams in between 8 and where I end up, are they going to be looking for an edge rusher too? Where are they set at edge rusher? Could they step in front of us and get Dallas Turner? It's a lot of considerations. There's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And the Falcoholics, Kevin Knight, who does a great job of tweeting about the Falcons and the draft process, tweeted last night, how many times have teams gotten burned by chasing the best athlete instead of prioritizing the best player? Feels like that's the crux of the Dallas Turner versus Latu debate for the Falcons. So I think in previous tweets before that one, Knight was calling Latu the best player, best college player anyway, and referring to Turner as the better athlete. Although Latu, I believe, is a very good athlete as well. It's not like he doesn't do well at the measurables. So just think Turner is the cream of the crop if you're looking for potential or most upside, whatever buzzword around the draft that you want to use.
Yeah. See, to me, and as I said, I haven't watched these guys yet. I haven't done a lot of draft preparation yet. I've seen a lot of high marks for Dallas Turner. Today I was doing a lot of reading last night, and I did see Latu get a lot of positive vibes as far as his ability to succeed in the NFL. So, that's the thing. To me, the best player and the best, well, what did you say? The best
athlete?
Best athlete and best player should be the same thing, but I always want to go for best player because I've always said being an athlete doesn't necessarily mean you're a football player. So, however, Turner's shown it on the college level. He's shown his effectiveness. He's shown his skills at pass rusher, at edge rusher. So I'm not saying that, the Falcons wouldn't be getting the best player with Dallas Turner. Maybe they are. Is he just an athlete? If he's just an athlete, then no. Maybe you have to reprioritize. But as I say, that's something I'm going to be looking at a little bit more in the future. Brian, I agree with you. I'll take a good football player over a good athlete any day. As I say, just because you're a good athlete does not mean you're a football player. Does not give you the instincts you need to play football and be one of the top players in the NFL. I've seen plenty of athletes come out of college and never pan out in the NFL because they don't have that instinct for playing the game. And, that's kind of what I look for a lot in college players is what are their instincts like? You can see a lot about how athletic a player is in the combine and at their pro days. But to me, if somebody has a great combine, somebody has a great pro day, that sends you back to the film to reevaluate. That doesn't necessarily mean this guy is a better player or this guy is a better prospect because he showed well in controlled conditions.
You're right. Yeah.
If he shows well in controlled conditions and he looks really good and comes up with these, high combine numbers, then yeah, you got to go back to the film. But don't underestimate the film when you make a decision about a player. Because the film's going to tell you more. The film's going to tell you if he has instincts to be a player. And that's what I'm looking for.
There's 3 big boards, draft big boards that I like to use at 3 different websites, Pro Football Focus, ESPN, and Bleacher Report. At Pro Football Focus, Latu is ranked the 11th overall prospect, and Turner is 16th.
Really?
Yeah. ESPN has them flipped. They have Turner at 7, Latu at 15. And the tiebreaker going to Bleacher Report does not help us in this tiebreaker because they have Jared Verse, the number 1 rusher, at number 9 overall. Turner, though, is ahead of Latu, but just barely. Turner at number 12, Latu at number 14 on the Bleacher Report big board. So,
yeah, well, everybody's got their opinion this time of year. It's really fun to see, fun to read the mock drafts, and that big board's probably going to change over the next couple of weeks. But that's how close all these three are. So as I say, I would not be adverse to seeing the Falcons trade back and taking one of the other guys, because I think you're still getting a potentially very good, if not great, pass rusher, edge rusher out of the draft this year, and that is a big missing piece for this team. They have got to find it somewhere. And now, if you don't have Reddick available, well, this is it. This is where you get it.
Right.
And if you can get that trading back and getting a couple more picks, more the better.
Jason agrees with you. He likes a trade back possibility, trade back idea of trading back. I would agree with that take, but it depends on how the Falcons view those three edge rushers.
Yeah,
right. If they like all three, like Bleacher Report has all three in the top, top 14.
Yeah.
Then sure, trade back to 12, and one of them's probably going to be there if they're interchangeable on your board. But if you like one a lot more than the other, regardless of who it is, I don't care if it's Turner or Latu or even Verse. If the Falcons scouting department and the general manager and everybody's on the same page that this is the preferred option for us, then I don't see any scenario where that guy isn't the pick at number 8.
No, I agree with you. You're right. Exactly. Depends on what the Falcons, depends on what how their draft board's setting up.
Yeah,
who they feel is the best guy. If they have their sights set on one man that will come in and be that player, then you stay. But if you think you've got two similar players, you rank these guys at similar rankings, then you could trade back and not worry about it, because you're going to get one of them.
Right.
So I might not, it's all speculation right now. Even what we're doing right now is speculation. We're just looking at scenarios. So if the Falcons, let's see, Brian said he's seen Latu drop to the 20s. Okay, well,
I have seen that in some mocks as well. I think I even saw one because I cover the Detroit Lions at heavy.com. I've seen a mock draft where he falls all the way to 29. And that would be a huge get for the Lions at number 29.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's one of their biggest needs, too, is edge rusher and not having to move up for one of the best ones. I don't see that one happening, quite frankly. Sometimes these mock drafts, I think, the writers and mock draft experts are also just going through scenarios and sometimes slotting players based on pick, not necessarily just based on reality. Regardless of a team need, I think somebody's going to take Latu in the top 15 because he's one of the best 15 prospects in this upcoming draft. And regardless of whether a team needs an edge rusher or not, someone's going to grab him. I don't see him lasting the first round.
They will.
But you're right, Brian. I have seen him drop into the 20s in some mocks.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, everybody has their opinion right now. What counts is what the Falcons think. If they think, they have similar talent at a couple of different players, then I'd say definitely trade back, get picks. You want depth on this team now. You've got to start building depth behind some of these free agent acquisitions that they've made over the last year. Start building up that guys that are eventually going to take that position. Because I looked at some of those contracts, and a lot of these guys are going to be over 30 when they come up for contracts again. You don't want to give them another big contract. You want to get some rookie contracts in place to take these guys places. So Anyamata, Caden Ellis, you've got to look at it pragmatically, not with your emotions, and say, it's great to have them here now. Yeah, they played great last year, but we've also got to replace them 3 or 4 years down the line. because it's going to be time.
Right. And getting back to our original story about the Falcons not landing Reddick, it would have been nice to get Reddick through a trade, especially giving up draft compensation a couple years down the road, and that would have allowed you more likely to get that depth, and it would have enabled you to trade back much and feel much better about it, I guess is what I would put it. And I think free agency, because free agency happens before the draft. I think we've talked about that, where it really shouldn't. Draft should be first.
Should be. Yes, should.
But because free agency is first, I think the teams that do well in free agency aren't necessarily the guys that are signing the biggest players and even filling their biggest needs. It's the teams that are adding everywhere on their roster so that they don't go into the draft, at least the first round, with this obvious hole where they have to take that position group regardless of who else is on the board. And you can't take best available player or best available prospect because, boy, we need a starting center or we need an edge rusher. And the Falcons are in a situation where they need an edge rusher.
Yes.
So they're a little pigeonholed in that. It's not as bad to be pigeonholed if you're in the top 10. More, if you're drafting later, it's more of an issue. But it would have been that would have been the other advantage of adding Reddick. You have flexibility of taking a different position at number 8 or trading out and then, taking a different position and gaining more draft capital. But
yes, you do.
I think more of the story.
That's the damaging part of what happened here.
Right.
Is you don't have that flexibility right now.
Right. Moral of the story, no Reddick. Whether you trade back a little or not, it's got to be edge. We really strongly feel like it has to be edge rusher.
It has to be. They cannot avoid it. It's a must. And they have to get it right. They have got to get this right. Ebikide came out with a lot of, as a good prospect out of the second round, but he's never developed.
Yeah.
He's never become that edge rusher you're looking for, that dominant guy on the side of the line you have to pay attention to. You've got to account for him. He's not Joey Bosa, TJ Watt, they're in another universe, but
sure.
He's not somebody that you have to account for. Like Grady Jarrett. You've got to account for Grady Jarrett in the middle of the line.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, teams really don't have to do that with who the Falcons have on the edge of their defense right now.
The other big thing that came out of the NFL this week, Tom, was the change that the league announced with the kickoffs. They approved a very radical new kickoff setup where the kickoff team, the coverage team, will be lined up at the opponent's 40-yard line, 10 yards away from the receiving team. And we're going to hear a lot about the start line, setup zone, landing zone. And so these new rules that are really encouraging kickoffs, trying to bring the kickoff play back to life and do it in a safe manner. And I think it's a good attempt. But before I say this is a huge win for the league or whatever, I want to see it in action. Did you have any reaction though to the league announcing this change?
I think it's interesting. It's farther than I ever expected the NFL to go with a rule change.
I think is this the most radical rule change in league history?
Might be.
You're our league historian on the show.
I would say going back to 1933, when the NFL first broke away from the college rule book and allowed forward passes from anywhere behind the line of scrimmage instead of 5 yards back, and brought the hash marks in closer into the center, and kind of made some rule changes to help offenses. Yeah, I would say this is one of the more radical rule changes I think the NFL has ever done.
Yeah, I misspoke. Brian's right. The receiving team lines up at the 30-yard line. I think not everyone has to be on the 30-yard line, but a certain number of players have to be on the
35-yard line.
35-yard line. So they're 5 yards apart in most cases, maybe maybe a little bit more, but
now you can put another player in the landing zone too. You don't have to just have one player back.
Right. The landing zone is the 20-yard line to the goal line. You can have up to 2 players in the landing zone. And there is no running start, obviously, because you're 5 yards apart from each other, but you're not allowed to move until the ball either is caught in the landing zone or lands in the landing zone.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I want to see how it works out, that this is going to be on the referees to signal when you can move, because some of the return team is going to have their back to the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this works out. And the teams are going to be learning about it on the fly too, players as well.
Oh, sure. It's so radical. They've never done this before. They've never done this in college before. So it's going to be very radical. So it's I agree with you, Brian. A lot of hand-to-hand combat, less collisions. The kicking team doesn't get 10 to 15 yards to get up ahead of steam before they encounter, the special team blocking, the kickoff blocking that, your receiving team is setting up. So, it does help that. It is safer, as I say, just from the fact that you don't get that head of steam built up. But it's an interesting rule. It's also changed the onside kick rules.
Right.
Because you can't now you have to wait till the fourth quarter. You can't do a Sean Payton coming out of halftime and doing the onside kick.
Right.
You have to do it. You have to do it. You only get the fourth quarter, and you have to announce that you're doing an onside kick.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing to see. It'll be interesting to see how that affects how the onside kick works.
So that's the next change that I think has to come, because the success rate of an onside kick is just so low at this point. It shouldn't be high, but it needs to be higher than about 8%, 5%, what it's been at the last several years. It just, games are over if it's a 2-possession game with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is over. Unless you're young, like cool, it just do all right at it. But other than that, your game is over. You have no chance. Where at least, under the old rules, you had a better chance of getting that onside kick. And you can surprise teams with it. You can change momentum with it. So it's going to be interesting to see. But it kind of threw me to say that you can only do it as a trailing team. You have to announce you're doing it, and I will see how that works. But I don't know. It's does it help with the offside kick situation, or does it make offside kicks is it tougher because you have to announce that you're doing it? And most teams know that you're doing it because you're laying the ball on the ground, you're teeing it up in different ways. But most of the times you're not surprising somebody when you're doing an onside kick. But actually having to tell the other team, the other side, that you're doing an onside kick, it's going to be interesting to see too. So, but this might help kickoffs because the kicking team doesn't have a chance to get that head of steam up.
Right.
And you're encountering the opposing players, your receiving team's blockers earlier. So maybe you get better returns out of this. And that's another thing is the touchbacks are going to the 30-yard line. So
Yes, I don't. Trying to think. I'm trying to skim the rules real quick.
It took me forever to find a spot where anybody was explaining it.
It's actually explained very well at the Athletic, I think. If it rolls into the end zone, it's an old school 20-yard line touchback. If it goes in the air, like you said, it is a touchback to the 30. So it's just another example of the new rules encouraging returns. Kickers are going to be taught, don't kick the ball into the end zone. We don't want them to get the ball at the 30-yard line. You have to kick it on a fly into the landing zone, in between the 20 and the goal line.
Yep, exactly. So it's going to encourage returnable kicks. So it's interesting. Yeah. Gary had a good point earlier, tracing back to the Falcons, about Cordero Patterson. The Falcons let him go, kind of, parted ways with him, and he's a return specialist.
I was going to ask you, so return specialists could potentially have more value because of this rule change. The NFL is hoping that's the case.
Yeah.
And the Falcons had the best return man maybe of all time in Cordero Patterson, 9 kickoff returns for touchdowns, most ever. Steelers have had 9 since 1989. Literally my lifetime. They've had as many as Patterson has had in his career.
Right.
So I think it's a pretty smart move by the Steelers, signing him to a 2-year, $6 million deal, low risk. And, maybe we saw in Atlanta how much Patterson also contributed on offense.
Yeah.
I don't think the Steelers need him to be a running back, but they've got some wide receiver depth concerns. Maybe Patterson can be a slot guy. And of course, he's back with Arthur Smith. I'm kind of surprised he wanted to play for Arthur Smith.
My, that did surprise me.
Yeah. But that, like, there was the NFL announced the new kickoff return rules, and then like an hour later, the Steelers announced that they signed Patterson. So they obviously were waiting for a ruling on the rule change, got it to where they were going to need a new, more. There was going to be more of an emphasis on returns, and went out and signed Patterson. Were you surprised that the Falcons didn't say, wait a minute, we have the best return man of all time. We want him coming back and helping us with this new rule?
I'm a little bit surprised, yes, because I think it would be a big advantage for the Falcons. And right now, with the signing of Kirk Cousins, this is a team that needs to win in the next couple of years. So, and Patterson's a guy who I think helps you win. However, the Falcons did make a move in free agency, got Ray McLeod from the 49ers. And Ray McLeod can return punts and kickoffs and is very good at it. Plus, you're getting Williams back this year, Avery Williams. So we'll see how that goes.
True. Yeah, Patterson's hasn't been a punt returner in his career.
Right. So you got Ray McLeod who can do both and play wide receiver for you. So it's going to be interesting to see how this situation evolves as we go into training camp and the preseason to see how this rule change. Does it help you kickoff returners? Is it going to give Cordero Patterson a new golden age? Do kick returners become, because right now being a kick returner, having kick returner in your resume has not meant much.
Right. Yes. Yes. And I think the league is trying to change that, bring back an exciting play of possibly returning a kickoff far and maybe even, change momentum, change the score like it used to back in the day.
It's going to change strategies on the kickoff too, because normally on a kickoff, you see the receiving team's front start moving back so they can set up blocks for their return man. They're going to be holding their place now because your return team, your kickoff team, they're going to be coming up a lot closer. They're not going to be turning around and moving back to set up blocks. And the kickoff team doesn't get that full head of steam going to cover the kickoff. So it's going to change strategy as far as, how special team coaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how they decide to block the play, attack the play. And that's going to be interesting to see too. I can't wait to see how this evolves as it goes on.
And I think they used a similar rule in the XFL, maybe not exactly the same.
I think they got this from last year, from one of the spring leagues. I think
it was exactly the same.
Yeah,
exactly the same.
Not exactly, but it was close.
Okay, because I was just going to say there's no film or tape to reference to see. Okay, well, a team tried this and it didn't work. A team tried this and it did work. This is what we're going to teach our players. I think they're going to be the special teams coordinators are going to be like, all right, I have this theory that I'm going to use this strategy for coverage. I'm going to use this strategy for our returns, but then they're going to run it in practice and see if it works.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's going to keep special team coaches up nights over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
And yeah, Brian, it is the XFL, and they are going to be trying to get their hands on every scrap of tape the XFL has to see what they can come up with as far as what strategies worked and what didn't work. So
Brian says he thinks there'll be some trick plays on kickoffs.
Why not? You got trick plays on every other play. You could run tricks everywhere in the field. So I'm sure they will come up with trick plays to take advantage of the new rule. I'm interested to see what they come up with. I'm going to be fascinated by it.
There's some chatter in the comments that the Steelers are becoming the AFC North Falcons. And there are quite a few former Falcons on the Steelers now. Keanu Neal is not, though, Tony.
Keanu Neal is a free agent. Michael Walker is a free agent, too. They have not been signed yet.
I was wondering about Walker because he was more of a practice squad guy that got elevated last year. I wasn't sure if he was still on the Steelers off the top of my head, but I know Neal got released.
I scanned the free agent list this morning and saw Michael Walker was still there and Keanu Neal was still there. A little surprised to see Neal still on it, but they are still available to any team in the NFL.
Neal got released with an injury designation. He didn't play the second half of the season because of ribs. I wonder if maybe that is a concern with any team that's potentially interested in him. They'd want to make sure he's healthy first. I don't know. Just throwing that out there that he was released with an injury designation.
I would say that probably has a lot to do with it, yeah. Because Neal had injuries when he was with the Falcons. He has not shown himself to be injury-free as a player. So, to be able to play entire seasons as a player. So that probably has a lot to do with it.
Seems like that's the problem with center Connor Williams right now. I think Pro Football Focus ranked him the top center available in this draft class, but he missed the end of the season because I forget if it was a knee injury or Achilles, but he had a pretty serious injury, didn't play the last month, and he's still available. So I think because of the injury that he suffered.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. You're right. And just the nature of the position as a center, you need speed. You need to be able to set up your block quick. And, there's a lot going into being a center in the NFL. It's not an easy job. So, yeah, I think the injury designation does have a lot to do with it. So.
Did you have any reaction to the change in rules for the hip drop tackle, I think is what it's referred to as? That was the other big thing that came out of the spring meetings this past week. It's going to be a penalty now to drag somebody down, twist them by the hips. I need to read more about this rule change, to be honest.
So do I.
But I just think the NFL is opening another can of worms here in terms of how do we officiate this, and are we getting closer and closer to flag football? Quite frankly,
right?
How can you tackle people? You can't tackle up high. You don't want to tackle them going head first into his knee, and now you can't grab him and twist him by the hips. Like, what is there left to grab?
Well, problem is smaller defensive backs are going to have problems bringing down larger players, larger receivers, larger running backs. As it's not as easy to get leverage on these guys, and going to the ground, getting them in your grasp and going to the ground like that, it's one of the only ways you can really overcome the size and strength advantage that you're facing. So I want to see how this goes. The NFLPA is furious about it. They don't like this at all. And I can understand why. I think it's a ridiculous change. Because, yeah, you're giving the referees another thing they have to look for.
Right. And that's the other issue, other than the, how are we going to tackle people issue. I look at those two problems separately. Also, how are we going to enforce this? And there's going to definitely be inconsistencies, and it's a 15-yard penalty that is going to be missed at times and then called at other times, or maybe called when it shouldn't be. And it's going to impact games and impact playoff standings, who might win a playoff game. And I just think it's a can of worms.
It is huge can of worms. This is terrible, because I don't think I tweeted at the time when the rule change came out that you're going to have to spend a lot of time teaching the referees exactly what a hip drop tackle is.
Right.
Because I was looking through X, at the time, and it seemed like, it seemed like nobody knew. Half the people I were reading, saw comments saying, this is a terrible idea. Half the people were showing video clips of tackles that weren't not hip drop and were saying they were hip drop. And so you got to teach the officials what it is first. I think, as far as I saw, the only real difference is you drop to your hips, but your feet are leaving the ground. So, but I might be off on that. It's going to be a difficult thing for officials to see,
right?
Instantaneously.
Yeah. Right. Even if they know what they're looking for, which is, I guess, the first step. Watching it in live time and identifying it. I mean,
right.
Officials know what pass interference is, but they don't always see that, or sometimes call it and it shouldn't be called.
Yeah.
Or they have a different angle than we get on TV that they think it is, or they think it's not, and it shouldn't be or should be. It's going to be the same problem. Same problem.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I think this is going to fuel a lot of controversy when the season starts. And they're going to have to look at that rule again. That's something that they're going to have to reevaluate, because I think it's ridiculous. What are you going to let the defenders do? I'm with you. What are you going to let the defenders do? What are they allowed to do to bring a guy down? Very little. Right.
And I'm all for player safety. I want to say that first. I am, of course, all for making the game as safe as possible. But at the same time, football is inherently dangerous.
It is still football.
Yes. There's only so much you can do to make it safe and keep it still football.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody's going to watch flag football. So you can't turn the NFL into that.
Hasn't helped the Pro Bowl, has it?
Right. Yes. No, it has not. You're going to have hitting. You're going to have physical plays, and people are going to get hurt. It's football.
Right. Exactly. I'm sorry, you make 10 hip drop tackles or 20 hip drop tackles and somebody gets hurt. Well, you make a tackle another way, somebody's going to get hurt. It happens. Right. It's football. You cannot legislate all danger out of the game.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly my point. And if you want to prioritize what hits are more dangerous, I mean, long-term impact on head injuries is far more concerning than an injury that you get taken down by the hips and you're out for the rest of the season. That's not going to impact the rest of your career. It's not going to impact the rest of your life.
No.
Which is really what player safety to me is about.
Well, and that's what the kickoff rule goes back to. instead of allowing the kicking team to get up ahead of steam and charge into your blockers, now they don't get that. They get 5 yards before they're encountering blocking. And it's going to make the kickoff a little bit safer while still providing a kickoff to watch. So
right.
That's why I think the rule has possibilities. We'll see how well it works. But the hip drop rule doesn't it sounds random to me. Like they were looking at tape or listening to opinions and decided that, we got to make it look like we're making the game safer. Not like we're actually doing it, but we got to look like it.
Well, I didn't know that the Players Association hates this change.
They hate it universally. They can't stand it.
Well, player safety should be about the players. So, yeah. I mean, if the players don't like the rule change, then and it's supposed to be for them, then it definitely needs to be reevaluated.
Oh, I agree. I think it should be reevaluated before they go into the season. I'm serious.
Well, it won't.
I know it won't.
I agree with you.
I
do not agree that with the rule being passed for sure.
No, but
and Jason says it'll cost the Falcons a game. Yeah,
probably.
Knowing the Falcons' luck and record with these sort of things, it probably will.
Yeah, it's going to cost a lot of teams games, and there's going to be a lot of belly aching about it afterwards. There's going to be a lot of complaining by the players after games. Why did you miss that tackle? Well, I couldn't bring him down, or else it would have been a 15-yard penalty. Yeah, you can't do that. It's just ridiculous. It's, I think I've had my say about it. It's not much farther I can go.
Well, we got less than 10 minutes left in the show, and I know this came out about a month ago, but you wanted to discuss speaking of the Players Association, you wanted to discuss the report cards that the Players Association gave out for all of the organizations. And I believe the Falcons were ranked 25th overall. Yes. Didn't fare very well in most categories, but in some in particular did very poorly. Is there anything to this? You think that, I think I shouldn't say a lot of owners, but I saw Steelers owner Art Rooney too. Steelers were another team that did very poorly. And Art Rooney came out and said, this doesn't really mean much. This is just media fodder, basically. What do you think? Do you think it's something, is it notable, or is it just off-season chatter to fill the airwaves until we get some actual news?
I don't see it affecting free agency that much. I mean, the Dolphins got A's across the board. Did they get better free agents because of it?
I think it's much more likely that free agents want to go to Miami to party, to be honest.
I mean, the Dolphins were, as I say, they didn't get lower than an A on any of it. But I think there is something to it. There's something teams should look at. The Falcons got an F and an F- in weight room and strength coaches.
F-.
I know, F-. But players say that the equipment, they could get better equipment if they go to getting open to the public training facility.
Planet Fitness.
They have better equipment available to them. And they have, and the Falcons strength trainers are terrible. Now, I think the Falcons did fire their head of conditioning after last season, so that might change things. They bring in a new head of conditioning. That might change next year's grade. But also average as far as food cafeteria, they got to see. Treatment of families, they got to see. Training staff, very well. But weight room and strength coaches, not well. Team travel was a C. Ownership, Arthur Blank got an A-. So
that doesn't surprise me.
Because they feel he is committed to the team and he's willing to listen to things that are team related, and he's willing to give them an ear. So Yeah, he got a high grade. The locker room, they say the locker room is not up to par. They got an F for locker room.
Well, that surprises me because Mercedes-Benz Stadium is so new and
I
was
know.
$2 billion to build or whatever.
Says only 33% of players feel like the locker room itself is big enough. And that's 31st overall. Only 51% of players feel like their lockers are big enough. And that's 31st overall. And it said several players say they need more space in the locker room and bigger lockers. And some feel that they need more toilets and needed better ventilation in the washroom. So, overall for a new stadium, yeah, you'd be surprised at that they really did not pay much attention to the locker room areas, and that, that there's a deficiency at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Now, I guess it does say that the Falcons have greenlit a project to redo the facilities, including a new locker room. So we'll see how that goes in the future. But I think at least that's Mercedes-Benz, Brian. So that's not the training facility. That's Mercedes-Benz. And that's home team and visitors are making comments about this. So, but, I think you have to show that you're trying to pay attention to the players. Show that you have good faith in the players, in what's happening behind the scenes. They got C's in food service, food prep, family friendly treatment of families.
Yeah.
If they do offer daycare, they would like to get some family members field pass. It sounds like little ticky-tack things, but it's things that help make your atmosphere a little bit better. It's things that the players aren't thinking about when they're going out to the field or going out to practice. It's one less thing on their minds. They ranked, as far as food service, food cafeteria, they ranked 21st in food taste, 21st in food freshness.
Okay.
And they want more variety and options in the food program. And they don't, but they do feel like they're receiving an individualized food plan, a nutritionist plan. So that is a top. But, the little things add up. They really do.
Yeah.
Bengals owners said, yeah, we're taking it seriously. We're looking at it.
I think every owner should, to be honest. I pulled up the exact quotes from Art Rooney too, the Steelers owner that I referenced, and his point was that it doesn't get presented to us privately; it gets presented to the media. He's talking about the Players Association grades. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a media opportunity for the Players Association, as opposed to a serious effort of constructive criticism. I guess that's a valid point, but
I think it's a little of both. The Players Association, yeah, this is a attention getting thing.
Sure. And I think some of the things are a little ridiculous. Like you're going to grade the food's freshness versus the food's. What was the other thing you said? Food.
Let's see. Food taste. 21st in food taste.
Okay. I mean, in order to get a real true grade, don't we all need to go taste every single facility's food and then rank it 1 to 32?
I don't know how they do that ranking.
So I think some of it is a little ridiculous, but at the same time, I don't know, maybe this is my competitive nature, but if I got an F in anything and that was my team, that would really bother me.
Yeah,
that would really bother me. Unless I guess it depends on the category, but there's no reason to get F in treatment of families or anything below a B in that.
You got Thomas, I got Zozo.
Right. So that's something that in particular, that category.
I do agree with Rooney that you probably should have brought it to the teams first. Why aren't you taking this to the teams? But, and then, releasing it to the media. But at least talking to each team and saying, okay, this is where you rate. And then go, releasing it to the media. But it doesn't mean that there's any less emphasis on some of these things or should be any less emphasis on fixing some of this.
Right. Yeah. And some of this, I think, just should be flat out embarrassing. Forget about the grade that the Steelers received in team travel, which was a D. Twice in the first month of the season, they had to have an emergency landing on their plane because there was an issue with their aircraft. And it's just like an NFL team should not have an issue with an aircraft. If it happens once in a blue moon, maybe, but it happened twice in like the span of 3 weeks, which I think meant back-to-back road trips. They had a problem with their aircraft. If I'm Art Rooney, that would be super embarrassing.
Yes,
super
exactly. It should be. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Players Association releases it to the media instead of going to teams with it first, because they want to call attention to the fact that
they want to embarrass you. One of the best ways to get action is to embarrass.
Is to embarrass, yeah. So, but training, it says a majority of Falcons believe their facility is no better than off-site locations where they could train. Only 5 other teams in the league have similarly poor impressions of their own weight room. The players have a long list of equipment that they feel any weight room should have that this weight room does not. You got to get that list. And you got to look at that list and you got to see how you can implement that list.
Yeah.
Because you got players from all over the NFL. I mean, you don't just have players who were drafted by the Falcons. You got players who come in to the system and they still feel like your weight room is, no better than, Planet Fitness or anywhere else. You got to take that into serious consideration.
Yeah. And it's not impacting the play on the field. I don't want to go that far and say if there's better treatment of families, players will play better. No.
Right. No.
It's just a matter of being a good organization that maybe you could benefit from landing a free agent here or there if you have higher grades. But it's just a matter of being a good organization and caring about your employees.
Right.
And having pride in your business. You're an owner.
Having pride in your business. You're right. Comes down to that. Yes.
And a lot of owners just would rather save money, which is really disappointing and sad.
But then it tells you what kind of organization they are.
Yes.
And it surprised me that Rooney came out with that remark because I've always looked at the Steelers as being a top organization in the league.
Well, this is a new Rooney, and that's
true.
We're out of time. Can't get into that on this episode. But he is the grandson of a great owner, the son of a fantastic owner. Steelers never won anything before Dan Rooney. Haven't won anything since he left either. So,
right.
We're out of time here on today's show. Thank you for joining us on this Easter Saturday and making us a part of your week. We'll be back next Saturday at 12 o'clock.
Yep. Always appreciate you spending some time with us either during the broadcast or during the week. So, glad to see you. And everybody have a great week.